Warning, this podcast contains themes of extreme violence and murder. Subject matter may be offensive to some listeners. Discretion advised.
The question I repeat. When you fired that revolver at close range into the body of David Blakely, what did you intend to do?
And her answer?
Her answer was, it is obvious, I intended to kill him.
Welcome to another episode of Evil Transgression, your homicide headquarters here in podcasting. I'm Josh, and with me as always, Dustin and Rex.
Hey, what's up?
What's going on?
What is going on? Everybody doing good? You doing good?
Great.
You doing good?
Yeah, I know that Dustin was lucky this morning, doing 85 past a cop in a 55.
I did hear there was a little bit of clenching of the cheeks.
There was. I had to get off the phone with you.
He was sweating.
Be like,
well,
and go drop down to 55.
if you gotten up on time.
I know.
I mean, you might as well just stayed at 80. If you're gonna pass a cop at doing 80 and a 55, slowing down does nothing.
Just lets them get to me faster.
Yeah.
No, what I did was I went past a semi and I got in front of him and then slowed down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't get behind you.
I was trying to hide.
That's a Smokey and the Bandit. Gonna block him in.
Perfect.
That's good. So you're doing a lot better now that you've got here without getting a ticket for doing excessive speed.
It was like 30 over, so yeah.
That's pretty
You
good.
know, they could actually probably have taken your license for anything over, isn't it like over 20 or
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been good.
No.
you and calling us like, hey guys, if you really want to record,
Come pick me up.
you're gonna have to bail me out. We have a blonde bombshell to do today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't believe she was a natural blonde, but
The
she was
blonde.
a blonde bombshell.
Oh, okay.
The blonde bomber.
No, not a bomber. A bombshell. Yeah, a lady by the name of Ruth Ellis. You guys familiar with Ruth Ellis?
I don't
No.
think so.
No.
Well, this should be a learning experience for all of us.
Hey,
Can't wait.
I do have something to tell you.
Oh, yeah?
I got a phone call last Thursday.
Yeah?
And it was my sister, and she was cracking up laughing. And she said she was folding clothes, and she was listening to us, and all of a sudden you started talking about Janie. Like
The church lady, Janie?
Janie at church. And she said she lost it.
Oh, that's great.
Well, we do our best to entertain.
Mhm.
All right, so you guys ready?
Remember
Let's
you was
do
like,
it.
what'd you say? Bless her.
Bless her. Bless her heart.
Oh, man.
All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
You ready?
Yes.
Buckle up, evil mob, as we discuss Ruth Ellis. Ruth Ellis was born Ruth Hornby on October 9th, 1926 in Rhyl, which was a small seaside town of Welsh. For those of you that don't know, we're across the pond.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Where?
we're in the English territories. She was the third of 6 children of Bertha Cothles and Arthur Hornby. Her father was a musician who spent a lot of time playing music on Atlantic cruise liners. Now, I'm not saying that he's a good musician. He's actually a failed musician who got a job on a cruise liner.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that would be a cool job to have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
You get to go out on the cruises.
Yeah, but when you're on it every day as work, it's
Yeah.
probably not as fun as if you're like hopping on there with your family.
Mm-hmm.
True.
But it wasn't a bad thing that the failed musician father traveled a lot, because when he was home, he would physically abuse his wife and daughters.
Wow.
Ruth was raped by her father at a young age, as well as her sister. Ruth attended Fairfield's Senior Girls' School in Basingstoke, but left school at 14 years old to begin work as a waitress. She's like, this education ain't gonna work. I have to serve tables. Not too long after, at the start of World War II, the family moved to London. That's probably one of the safer places, I would think.
So wait, World War II, and she moves to London.
Yeah, the family did.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's probably not the safest place.
No, not at all.
I'd have moved to, like, America.
Canada.
So the father changed his surname to Nielsen around this time, so now the Hornsbys were Nielsens. In 1944, Ruth became pregnant by a Canadian soldier who was already a married man, and Ruth was only 17 years old at the time. So 17, got an illegitimate child by a Canadian soldier.
Who's married.
Who is, yes, married.
Perfect.
She gave birth to a son named Claire Andrea Nielsen. A son named Claire Andrea Nielsen.
Interesting.
Yeah. He's set up to fail. The Canadian soldier, who was the father, although not present, sent money to Ruth for about the first year of the boy's life before stopping altogether. Andy, that was the name that Claire Andrea Nielsen ended up going by. Andy Nielsen would be sent to live with Ruth's mother, therefore, after. Ruth became a nightclub hostess by way of nude modeling.
That's how I got my start.
That's how we all ended up on this podcast.
That's how we met.
This job paid much more than the other jobs she had held since leaving high school. The nightclub was called Court Club and was managed by a real winner named Morris Conley. Now, Morris Conley had a habit of blackmailing the girls who worked at the club and forced them to sleep with him. So he's like this stereotypical sleazy nightclub manager.
Sounds like it.
Like if you were making a movie and you needed to have a sleazy nightclub manager, this guy plays
that guy. Yeah.
So Ruth turned to prostitution in early 1950. This was a way to earn a little bit more money. When she became pregnant by one of her regular customers, she had the baby aborted illegally in the 3rd month of her pregnancy. She returned as soon as possible back to work. Towards the end of 1950, Ruth had met a 41-year-old dentist named George Ellis. Ellis was a divorcee who had 2 sons. George was a frequent customer of Ruth's at the Court Club. So, once again, one of her Johns is hooking up with her. George Ellis was also a jealous, possessive drunk who immediately began to accuse Ruth of having an affair.
How do you accuse a sex worker of having an affair? It doesn't seem like it goes together.
When you're a possessive, jealous drunk, that's probably what goes through your head.
It's like, how did you meet her?
Yeah.
Like,
Several times Ruth would leave him, but would always return. The marriage was a bad one to say the least. In 1951, Ruth found herself pregnant yet again. While she was 4 months pregnant, Ruth made her way onto the big screen in a movie titled Lady Godiva Rides Again. Although Ruth's part was a small uncredited role of a beauty queen, she became friends with the star of the film, Diana Dors. Now, Diana Dors is like the English version of Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she's like the sexy sex symbol lady.
I'm gonna have to look her up.
I don't know how else to describe it.
that was a good description.
When Ruth gave birth to her daughter and named her Georgina after her daddy George, George refused to believe he was the father of the child. So George is still on that, Ruth, you're cheating on me kick.
Yeah.
This led to another separation, and Ruth and her daughter moved back in with her parents. Ruth Ellis went back to hostessing. In 1953, Ruth became the manager of a nightclub called the Carol Club. This nightclub must have been a little more classy because she became acquainted with many celebrities. One of those celebrities was Mike Hawthorne. Mike Hawthorne was a well-known race car driver who in turn introduced her to a fellow race car driver, David Blakely. Ruth and David Blakely hit it off, and within weeks, he moved into her flat above the club. Now, if you're a well-known race car driver, what are you doing moving in to a nightclub manager's house?
Yeah,
shouldn't
right.
I mean, if you're good at what you do, shouldn't you have a nice house? Like
You would
come
think.
live with me.
Right.
I don't know. This happened despite the fact that David Blakely was already engaged to another woman at the time, so that might explain
Oh,
it.
man.
Shortly after, Ruth Ellis became pregnant again for the fourth time, if you're keeping track at home, but again aborted the baby because she wasn't as committed to the relationship as David Blakely.
Oh, so I'm not committed. I'm just gonna kill this baby.
Yeah. Crazy.
She just has the worst luck with relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Did they have birth control back then?
Yeah, it's called abstinence. But to me, she's just not making good life choices, I guess. So she aborts the baby because she's not in is committed to this relationship, but she also in turn starts seeing a former Royal Air Force pilot named Desmond Cousins. Now, Desmond Cousins, who after leaving the Royal Air Force in 1946, had taken over the family business, Cousins and Company, which was a company that sold wholesale and retail tobacco. So when Ruth was fired as manager of the Carol Club, Desmond took her in with open arms. She moved in with Cousins as his mistress.
Oh, wow.
So again, making amazing life choices.
Yeah, she is.
But all this time, her relationship with David Blakely continued. So she's living with this guy as a mistress, but still continuing her relationship with this David Blakely.
She's got too much going on.
Yep. You're burning the wick at both ends.
Oh, yeah.
And it also grew more violent and ugly. Both continued to see other people. So, they're still like in what they think might be called a relationship. I don't think I would call it a relationship, but they're both still seeing other people. So it's just like a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. That's a mess
for sure.
So Ruth became pregnant again by Blakely,
Number 5.
but ended up having a miscarriage in the spring of 1955. And this was after David Blakely punched her in the stomach during an argument. It is just crazy
Yeah.
that she's aborted, was it 2? And lost 1. Because she had Andy, Claire,
Right.
and then Georgina. And now she's got punched in the stomach and lost 1. So she's all over the place.
Yeah, she is.
10 days later, after the miscarriage, on Sunday, April 10th, 1955, Ruth Ellis took a taxi from Cousins' home in search of David Blakely to confront him. Blakely had apparently called their relationship off, and Ellis wasn't to have it. Ruth finally tracked Blakely down to a pub he was drinking at with a friend named Clive Gunnell. If that isn't as English as it gets,
Oh, yeah.
That's a sweet name, though.
Clive
it is.
Gunnell. My name's Clive Gunnell, hey?
Hello.
Top of the morning to you. She waited outside the pub by Blakely's car. At around 9:30 p.m., David Blakely and Clive Gunnell walked out of the pub and passed Ruth Ellis, who was standing on the sidewalk waiting. When Ruth spoke to David, he ignored her and walked past. Like, she's like, "Hello, David." And he's like, "I don't know you." Just keeps going. So she yells at him, and again, he just keeps going. So this really, really makes her mad.
Oh, I'm sure.
And as David Blakely was reaching into his pocket for his keys for the car, Ruth pulled a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver and fired at Blakely.
Wow.
Now, the first shot missed, and David began to run. But the thing is Ruth gave chase and fired again, striking Blakely and sending him to the pavement. She then stood over him and fired 3 more shots into him.
Dang.
Witnesses recall Ruth Ellis standing over Blakely's body, continually pulling the trigger of the gun as it misfired on the last shot over and over and over before finally firing that last bullet. Now, the thing with this last bullet is it actually misses Blakely's body, ricocheted off the ground, and struck a 53-year-old woman named Gladys Yule in the base of her thumb.
Wow.
And Gladys Yule was just like basically getting to cover. She was running into the building,
standing there with her thumb in the air.
But I mean, this is going to be important that this last bullet misses and hits a bystander, basically.
Yeah.
Ruth Ellis looked at Blakely's friend Clive, and I mean, he can see that she's kind of out of it, and says, "Will you call the police, Clive?" So during all this chaos, an off-duty police officer approached Ruth and takes the smoking gun from her hands and places it in his pocket and puts her under arrest. And she told the officer, quote, "I am guilty. I'm a little confused."
I would have thought the barrel would have been a little bit hot at that point, and he put it in his pocket.
Yeah. And she was taken to the Hempstead police station where she confessed to her crime. No legal representation was present when Ruth Ellis was interrogated or during her confession. On April 11th, 1955, Ruth Ellis stood in front of the magistrate's court, still without legal representation, and was held on remand. Finally, her pal, Desmond Cousins, chose a lawyer to represent her. She was examined 2 separate times by doctors who found no evidence of her being mentally ill. She was then examined by 2 separate psychologists, again, one for the defense and one for the prosecution, who also found no evidence of insanity. So Ruth Ellis went to trial on Monday, June 20th, 1955. Ruth showed up to the trial with freshly bleached blonde hair and dressed to the nines, even though her lawyers had told her to give a more modest appearance. You know, they're basically like, who was it, Jodi Arias?
Yeah.
Who was like, always like, had makeup on and looking fancy, and then like come court time she was like wearing the sweaters, no makeup, and
the jacket with the shoulder pads.
They tried to give him like a complete opposite idea, but so they told her, you know, basically to play down her appearance, and she wasn't having any of that. She wanted to be seen as the beautiful blonde bombshell she was, although that didn't end up playing for her in her favor.
Yeah.
Ruth Ellis was put on the stand and asked only one question by the prosecutor. And the question was, quote, "When you fired the revolver at close range into the body of David Blakely, what did you intend to do?" Ruth Ellis replied, quote, "It's obvious when I shot him, I intended to kill him."
Wow.
That answer guaranteed her a guilty verdict, basically, and the mandatory death sentence that came with it. The jury took only 15 minutes to come to their guilty verdict.
I'm surprised it took that long.
Ruth Ellis was sent to the Holloway prison in London, England, to await execution. The trial judge wrote to the Home Secretary at the time to recommend reprieve, but was denied. The issue with the case, which kept it from being manslaughter instead of the murder charge she received, was the woman who got hit with the ricocheted bullet in the base of the thumb.
What?
I mean, otherwise it would have most likely been manslaughter, basically a crime of passion.
Right.
But because an innocent bystander was struck by a bullet, that kept it from going to that.
It was the thumb.
You never know. She could have bled to death.
That's true.
Yeah, it was the thumb. And now I hate giving criminals any type of leeway, but
Right.
you just shot a man like 5 times.
Yeah.
Well, 4 times. You missed once and missed the last time, which ricocheted and shot somebody else.
Yeah.
That lady should have put her thumb away.
She was trying to hitch a ride.
I don't know what she was doing, but
I told you she was trying to hitch a ride.
On July 12th, 1955, Ruth Ellis met with a different lawyer than the one Desmond Cousins had chosen for her during the trial. This new lawyer was one who had represented her during a divorce proceeding previously. It was during the meeting that Ruth revealed that the gun used to kill David Blakely was provided by none other than Desmond Cousins. Ruth Ellis also stated that Cousins had driven her to the pub to confront Blakely. After the meeting, the lawyer rushed to authorities to give them the new information in hopes of keeping Ruth from getting the death penalty.
you know, Cousins heard them gunshots and skirted like.
He's like, well, see you later. The information that the lawyer brought to the investigators fell on deaf ears, and no investigations into the new evidence was ever made. Ruth Ellis penned a letter to David Blakely's mother that said, "I have always loved your son, and I shall die still loving him." On Wednesday, July 13th, 1955, Ruth Ellis was led from her cell to the execution chamber next door. Ruth Ellis was hung just after 9 a.m., her body left hanging for an hour before finally being taken down.
Brutal.
Jeez.
And she got hung in 1955.
Lead her to the gallows.
To the gallows. To the gallows with you. A public backlash ensued with the execution of Ruth Ellis. Now, this is a landmark case because many believe that the battered woman was wrongly punished for her crime. It was made public during the trial that David Blakely was violent towards her, often striking her and bruising her and beating her, and but none of that really mattered. The execution of Ruth Ellis resulted in tons of public support to abolish the death penalty, which was halted 10 years later in Britain. That's why this is an important case. Things were quite odd for those who had been around Ruth Ellis in the years following her execution, however. So if you knew Ruth Ellis or you were like part of her family, things didn't go too well. In fact, in 1958, Ruth's husband, George Ellis, hung himself.
Man.
In 1969, Ruth Ellis's mother was found unconscious in her home after a gas leak, accidental or done on purpose, who knows. The woman would never fully recover and never speak coherently again. In 1982, Ruth's son Andy, who was only 10 years old when his mother was hanged, committed suicide.
Dang.
Wow.
It is believed he never got over the psychological damage his mother's death had on him. In 2002, Georgina, Ruth's daughter, who was 3 at the time of her mother's execution, died at the age of 50 from cancer. So there's so much tragedy surrounding this woman. Over the years, a public appeal for a pardon for Ruth Ellis was denied. She was buried in an unmarked grave within the walls of Holloway Prison, like all of the other executed prisoners. When the prison was being renovated in the early 70s, the body of all the executed women were exhumed for reburial. Ellis's body was reburied at St. Mary's Church in Amersham, Buckinghamshire.
Sounds fancy.
Funky name.
Buckinghamshire.
I think it sounds fancy.
It is fancy. Which is crazy because she's buried not too far away from Blakely.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Yeah.
Her headstone read, Ruth Hornby, 1926 to 1955. Her son Andy destroyed the headstone shortly before he killed himself in 1982. Ruth Ellis was the last woman to be executed in the United Kingdom. She was 28 years old at the time of her execution.
This whole story, you picture an older woman.
Right.
You don't.
But she started, I mean, she was working at 14. I mean, she started life really young.
Yep. So tell me, fellas, how you feel about this one?
It was a crime of passion.
Yeah, I don't agree with the sentence of death.
Why? Because she's a woman?
No, because literally she did it out of anger. You know,
well, I felt like she was pushed in that direction too by
pretty
giving
much
the gun.
how most murders happen.
But I'm saying she did it as a crime of passion.
She passionately shot a man.
Yeah, but she was mad, and it was just spur of the moment, and she accidentally shot some random woman holding her thumb up.
Yeah.
If she wouldn't have done that, she'd have been fine.
Well, and she was obviously pushed in that
she would
direction.
have had, yeah. That's the thing is, this Cousins guy didn't have to answer for any of it. Like, nothing.
Yeah, that's not right.
I mean, she basically says, hey, he gave me the gun. He took me there.
Yeah. He wanted it to happen.
They're like, we don't know if this man. Go away. I don't know. It's a mixed emotion. It's one of those stories where you kind of feel bad for her.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people do way worse and get way less.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've seen people do way less and get way worse.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not really. I don't know.
Not on that. She got the death penalty. I think that's as bad as it gets.
Yeah, that's true. But that is the story of Ruth Ellis.
Good stuff.
I liked it.
I did too. So we all learned something today.
We did. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to see what this lady looks like. Now I'm curious.
She is
A blonde
for
bombshell.
the time an attractive blonde bombshell. I probably have used that word more times in this episode. Those words, blonde bombshell, than I have ever cared to in my life. But we'll definitely have a picture of her up.
Good deal.
What do you got for me, Rex?
Just the usual. If you haven't gone to our Facebook page, go ahead, head there, give us a like. We usually will have, pictures and different clips of the people we speak on. Also, if you have any questions, ideas, you can email us at eviltransgression@gmail.com. And we started last week. If you do have a question, we'll bring it up at the end of the episode and answer it for you. So, Dustin.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for the continued support on Patreon. And if you're not on there, you can join us.
How do they do that?
You go to patreon.com/eviltransgressionpodcast, or you can go to our link description at every episode, and it'll be on there. So.
Mm-hmm.
Join today.
Join today. Join tomorrow.
Join yesterday.
Yeah.
Get
yesterday.
Get a time machine. Go to yesterday and join. The question from the Evil Mob this week comes from Monica, who asks, if you could meet any of the killers we have covered and have dinner with them, who would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It is.
I know who it wouldn't be.
Janie?
Yeah, it wouldn't be Janie. I'm not eating any of Janie's cooking. I'm probably not going to have a smoothie with the Dracula of Sacramento either.
Right.
Vampire.
Man, I'm drawing a blank on his name. The dude in England that was like Hannibal Lecter.
That's buried.
Robert Maudsley.
Yeah. I'd hang out with him and I'd say, hello, Clarice.
That is a tough question.
That is.
Yeah, it is.
Who you got?
I mean, I don't think I'm going to eat their cooking, but if we had like
roosters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still go back to Velma West. She's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
The flapper Velma West.
Uh-huh. It's a good one.
Mine would be Thomas Silverstein. Nope.
That is a good one. Oh, but Silverstein, though. Silverstein is a good one because this guy tried to build a hang glider out of a weed eater.
Silverstein, I would just sit there and just stare at him.
Really?
He would probably take offense to that.
He's just so interesting. Like, he's just such a badass dude. Like, he really is.
Yeah.
And so, who are you going with?
I told you who I was going with.
You're sticking with Maudsley?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sticking with Hannibal.
So,
are you staying with Silverstein?
I'm staying with Silverstein.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
I bet he's a super interesting dude.
Well, he was very violent.
He was.
A little bit.
Yeah. So that was a good question.
It was. I liked it.
Make sure that you guys send us your questions to get answered on the next episode.
Yep. That's how it works.
We'll do it.
Do it.
All right. All conscience clear?
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, Evil Mob. And until next time.
See ya.
See ya.
Peace.